Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of the Jayden Bryce Show, the show where we talk about the latest, hottest topics in the world of pop culture and sports. I thank you so much for joining me. We had a great evening of football last night, the first game of the 2025 NFL season, the season opener, starring the Philadelphia Eagles going up against my Dallas Cowboys. It was a very eventful night all around. A lot of points on the board, had a whole hour worth of a lightning delay, but yet we got through it. The game didn't get over to almost roughly 12:30-ish for me. And I was up last night watching everybody's reactions to the game, this, and that. So I got a very exciting show lined up for you guys today. I'm going to be giving my reaction to the game, giving my analysis of it, and it's going to be great. That's going to be very fun. Then we are going to talk about an interesting story that came from John Middlecoff. He is somebody that I watch in the YouTube industry, and it is a story that is getting pushed out right now in the media about Bill Belichick denying Patriot scouts to the games and to the practices. That I have a huge problem with. And then we're going to end off the show, and I'm going to give pretty much a preview of tonight's matchup with the Kansas City Chiefs and a team that I'm very high on this year, the Los Angeles Chargers. But ladies and gentlemen, before we get into all that, thank you guys so much, as always, for joining me for today's show. I got an exciting one lined up for you guys. Do not hesitate to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like the podcast, check my podcast out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into the show. Cowboys-Eagles. This is a game that a lot of people were expecting it to be a blowout in the favor of the Eagles. It is mainly because of the offseason drama with the Dallas Cowboys, with the Micah Parsons thing, new head coach, you hiring a head coach that nobody has ever given a head coach opportunity for. He's been in the NFL for 14 years, never had a look as the head coach of a football team. And you had all that going on. Going into last night, I know I've covered the Cowboys. You know, you've had other people in the media to cover the Cowboys. I always saw there was like, okay, this team could be great. This was before the Micah trade, and even after the Micah trade, I was saying to myself, okay, this team has a shot to be good. Even though I predicted that the Cowboys would lose by 2 touchdowns, we can just go ahead and say that. And I'm not a huge fan of moral victories, but I'm going to go ahead and give myself and my team a moral victory because the Cowboys, and it may be because, and Colin Cowherd, me and him pretty much align on this. Maybe it was because my expectations were that low, but I can say wholeheartedly that it was a moral victory for the Cowboys, and they played better in every single aspect of the game at a pretty, I won't say elite level, but pretty good to almost great level of football last night under Brian Schottenheimer. Now, we will get to that later, but let's just go ahead and highlight things with the Eagles, okay? And I will get to the Jalen Carter crap at the end of the segment. I'm just going to give my analysis of the game. Y'all know I have doubted Jalen Hurts for the longest time. I have always thought that Jalen Hurts, he's had this stacked roster, had the best offensive line in the league, great wide receiver core, great talent around him. That has been my sentiment with Jalen Hurts ever since he's been on the Eagles. Specifically in the last 3 years when he has been in the playoff push, going to the Super Bowls and things of that nature. And I've got to give Jalen Hurts a lot of credit. Last night, Jalen Hurts was phenomenal. He was Patrick Mahomes-esque. If Jalen Hurts was not the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles last night, the Philadelphia Eagles lose that game. In every single aspect, Jalen Hurts was the only reason why the Eagles won the game. Call him Allen Iverson back in 2000 for the Philadelphia 76ers. That was Jalen Hurts last night, because everyone else around them, head coach, coaching, play calling, defensive players, some of the offensive players, everybody else was checked out. They were not 100% locked in, ready to play football. I don't know if it's the hangover. You had Nick Sirianni going into the game this week talking about, we're not caring about it being banner night. We're moving on to the next game. Jalen Hurts said the same thing. It's like, you're lying, because y'all are still high off of the Super Bowl win, because they were flat outside of Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was the only one locked in, and he was sensational, making plays with his legs, breaking first downs with his legs. And his stat line isn't a lot to talk about, because, and we've accused Jalen Hurts of this often. He is pretty much a dink and dunk type of guy. Jalen Hurts was 19 for 23, 152 yards, average 6 yards per pass. He had a quarterback rating of 93. And we'll get to everything else. But we'll get away from Jalen Hurts. I got a chronological list of pretty much things and aspects in this game for each team. So first, I wanted to bring up the Eagles, and then after that, we are going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys. So, for the Philadelphia Eagles, defensively, were they bad? This is coming from a defense coming off of a Super Bowl victory, who defensive line wise, the corners and just the defensive backs in general didn't have to do much. But coming from a Super Bowl where your defense absolutely wreaked havoc on a Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid-led offense, coming into this game, even though Brandon Graham is retired, Josh Sweat is not there, and Jalen Carter is not there because of the idiotic thing that he wanted to do during this game. So all of that taken into account, and you got Matabuke, or whatever the guy's name was, he was a free agent. He got signed to the New England Patriots. So a lot of key pieces were not there on that defensive line. Still, you would think that the defensive line, and even just the defense in general, would have put up a good performance against the Dallas Cowboys, because this was the idea going into this game. Everybody was thinking, okay, in order for the Cowboys to win this game, the defense is pretty much compromised. They're going to have to win the game on offense. And it was questionable going in. Okay, how is the George Pickens-CeeDee Lamb combo going to do? Are they going to be able to run the ball? Is Dak going to be good coming off an injury with the hamstring? All of those were questions. And we'll get to the spit, but after the spit happened, I don't know if that was a Kickstarter or even if Dallas was going to play like this to begin with. But the first half, the Cowboys done whatever they wanted to do against that defense from every aspect. They were mauling that defensive line. The linebackers couldn't cover my grandma. Same thing with the secondary. My Lord, Adoree Jackson, the Cowboys pretty much said, we're going to line up. Where's number 8? Adoree Jackson. He's coming from the New York Giants. I'm not for sure what team he came from this past season. I want to say it was the Tennessee Titans from the top of my head. But just think about it. They were targeting Adoree Jackson early and picking on him the whole game. The whole game. CeeDee Lamb eating off of Adoree Jackson because Quinyon Mitchell, he did not travel at all. He stayed on the outside, so he pretty much got matchups with George Pickens. But they were just bad. In multiple, how many penalties did the Philadelphia Eagles have? Here, let's go to the team stats just right fast. Turnovers. No, that's turnovers. Penalties. The Eagles had 9 penalties. I thought it was 9, but I just didn't want to make sure they had more. The Eagles had 9 penalties. Out of those 9 penalties, I want to say 95% of them were all on the defense or special teams. None of them were really committed by the offense. I don't even think they were called for one hold all night. No passes, interference, false starts, or anything of that nature. Well, they got one call for a delay of game. But outside of that, All of those penalties were on the defensive side of the ball. That defense was absolutely atrocious. Atrocious. Could not cover. Couldn't get no pressure on Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, we love using this analogy, and I love using the analogy. He could have called his wife, talked to the baby some, made him a sandwich, everything in that pocket. They got absolutely no pressure outside of maybe 2 or 3 times. Definitely later on in the second half of the game, they got a little bit of pressure on Dak Prescott. But for majority of the game, Dak Prescott had plenty of time to do and pick apart that Philly defense. And I see your comment, Timothy. We'll get to the Cowboys here in a minute. I was just going to talk about the Eagles. That is the defensive side of the ball. Let's get to the offensive side of the ball, which was, you can argue, just as bad. There was 7 targets between the Eagles' core wide receivers. We are talking about A.J. Brown, Schmitty, Devontae Smith, and Jahan Dotson? Yeah, I think I said that right. Jahan Dotson. And gets in their stat line. A.J. Brown didn't get a target until the last 5 minutes of the game. So he caught 1 ball for essentially 8 yards. Jahan Dotson, he had 3 catches for 59 yards. The one big catch that he had, which was 51 out of those 59 yards, was the deep ball that the Cowboys gave up in this. I think it was in the second half. It did Devontae Smith. He pretty much dinked and dunked balls. 3 catches for 16 yards, 5 yards a catch. They were literally non-existent in this game. The wide receivers were. I don't know if the coverage was that well. We know Matt Eberflus's defense, he likes to play a lot of cover 2, keep everything in front of him. And I was looking at a lot of coverages last night. There was not a lot for Jalen Hurts to throw to. So I don't know if it was that or it was just the play calling. I don't know. First year, this is a new offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo. He's been on the Eagles staff. He's been the pass game coordinator for the last 4 years. This is his first stint as the offensive coordinator because Kellen Moore got a head coaching job with the New Orleans Saints. But this was even though they won this game, you cannot look at this game and say that the Eagles were phenomenal on offense because Jalen Hurts single-handedly bailed them out on a lot of third down plays because he was getting out of the pocket. A lot of this has to do with the undiscipline of the contain lanes from the Dallas Cowboys, specifically in the first half. The reason why they got those first 3 opening touchdown drives, that was their offense. Even Saquon Barkley, a guy who coming off of a 2,000-yard season, and everybody is sitting here saying, is he going to be able to double up on that? All of the questions with the defensive line of the Dallas Cowboys, because we made the trade with Micah Parsons. We were sitting here like, okay, what is our run defense going to look like now? They held Saquon Barkley to his second lowest rushing yards, average rushing yards per attempt since he's been at Philadelphia Eagles. The only time it was lower was against the Cleveland Browns last year. It was like in week 10 or whatever, and he averaged like 2.2, 2.8 yards per carry. Saquon Barkley, now in the first half, fine. Second half, Saquon Barkley, and I think I have it somewhere, or I may have not forgot it. I think I posted on Twitter. Saquon Barkley had 8 rushing attempts in the second half for 11 yards. That is mind-boggling. And a lot of that had to do with just the Cowboys mixing things up defensively going into the second half, but that was a major concern for me. You got a team like the Dallas Cowboys who has questionable, very questionable stuff going on with their defense when it comes to containing and run going into this season, and that type of defense. Even though we got to give Cowboys their credit, okay, they're committing to this style of play because they played very physical against those Philadelphia Eagles last night. But if the Cowboys can do that, other teams should do that, probably more than likely 10 times better than how the Cowboys did it last night. Lastly, the Eagles should be concerned. You got the win. Banner night. Everything's going up against you, playing super undisciplined. Wide receivers aren't getting open. Jalen Hurts had to play hero ball. Yes, you will take a win because the way the game played out, it is just super frustrating and you can't really understand why and how the Dallas Cowboys didn't win the game because they were statistically better in every aspect of the game except for the turnover ratio. But that's the one thing. Turnovers can make or break your team in any point in any game. But you should be concerned because you cannot count offensively on Jalen Hurts bailing you out like he did last night with his legs, because teams will hone in on that. This is the first game of the season. Teams are going to be prepared. Now, should have Dallas been more prepared seeing the first two drives specifically? Even the first drive, Matt Eberflus should have been like, okay, Jalen Hurts is trying to use his legs a lot. Let's get a contain and a spy out there and just contain the pocket, keep him in the pocket, suffocate him in the pocket. That's a lot to do with the Dallas Cowboys being, coaching malpractice there. But other teams, other great defenses that you're going to face in this NFC and even in the AFC going out for the rest of the season, they are going to hone in on that. They are going to force Jalen Hurts to throw the football. That is what the Philadelphia Eagles are wanting to do. They are going to want to run the football. They want to be the physical ball club because they have the offensive line to be able to do that and the best running back in the league. But the Dallas Cowboys, specifically in that second half, neutralized the way the Philadelphia Eagles wanted to play football. And even when they neutralized them, the Philadelphia Eagles were not able to get their wide receivers involved. They are going to have to get their wide receivers involved if they want any chance to compete and try and repeat for a Super Bowl. Because that, in my opinion, was the worst game the Eagles have played that I can remember with my own eyes. Now, granted, I watch the Eagles on a weekly basis for the most part. I can say that this is the worst game that they've played since that Drew Lock Seattle game against the Seahawks. I think it was probably on Thursday night they played them. This is the worst loss. This is the worst, not the loss, but this is the worst they've looked in a win. You will take anything in a win, but if I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, I am not happy with how my team looked in any way, form, or fashion. I don't care if Jalen Carter was on the field or off the field. Even with Jalen Carter on the field, I think this more than likely probably would have been close to the same result. Really. Because it pretty much evened out. Jalen Carter weren't there. CeeDee Lamb dropping touchdown passes. It pretty much evened out. But that was, and something else that we could say, and I brought it up, no pressure on Dak Prescott. You have no elite pass rushers outside of Jalen Carter. And Jalen Carter was not in the lineup. So a lot of question marks with the Philadelphia Eagles. And if I'm a Philadelphia Eagle fan, I am, and I should be very, very concerned about your chances of getting to the Super Bowl again and trying going back to back. Granted, that's a very hard feat to do in the NFL. But that's a lot of question marks. A whole lot of question marks going on with that team. Now, this is the exciting part. Let's move on to my Dallas Cowboys. And I said it earlier, moral victory for me. It more than likely had to be because my expectations were really low to begin with. But coming out of that game, the Dallas Cowboys played better on both sides of the ball than I originally thought. Even with the offense being brand new and having all those weapons, I thought they were going to be slow out of the gate because it's new players, new play caller, this and that. I thought they were going to be sluggish. I didn't think they were going to be successful being able to run the ball. And on defense, I thought Saquon Barkley was going to have a field day. I really did. Because I posted it on Twitter when I was responding to First Take, because First Take was talking about, the Cowboys miss Micah. No, the Cowboys don't miss Micah Parsons on defense. They don't. Watch the games the last couple years against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles ran rapid on the Dallas Cowboys. Yesterday, they literally stopped the run and had the Dallas Cowboys a chance to win the ball game. I thought the defense played phenomenal. Well, not phenomenal. If they played phenomenal, they wouldn't have give up three touchdowns in the first half. But in the second half, they played pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. Better than what I anticipated. And it all starts with the quarterback. Dak Prescott was dialed in. He was absolutely dialed in. He didn't really throw one bad ball all game outside of the very last pass on the final drive of the game where he threw it and Quinyon Mitchell went through his hands. That's the only bad ball Dak Prescott threw all game. Dak Prescott was dialed in. He even when the defense couldn't get stops in the first half, he was very motivated. He had great attitude all game. He was being a leader. He was throwing accurate footballs. He was seeing the field very well. He was letting it rip, no hesitation. He just looked great. Great last night. If I was to give Dak Prescott a grade, I would give him an A+. Dak Prescott was 21 for 34, 188 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But he doesn't have any touchdowns because of Javonte Williams running that pigskin into the end zone. But Dak Prescott was great. With this Dak Prescott, this is the Dak Prescott that needs to show up in the playoffs. Even though you didn't get the win, Dak Prescott, the problem with Dak Prescott has always been, don't be the reason why. It's the same thing we said about Lamar Jackson. Every time the Cowboys lose in the playoffs, we always point at Dak Prescott. We are never able to point at anybody else, maybe the head coaches, but we always are able to point at Dak Prescott. In this game, this Dak Prescott, he is not the reason why we lost the game. He is the reason why we actually had a chance to win the game. Because those balls in the last two possessions they had of the game where CD dropped, those were absolute seeds. You cannot throw the ball any better. Right in the breadbasket, which is something that Dak Prescott has not been able to consistently do across his whole career. And he did that last night. So Dak Prescott was sensational. Now let's get to the CeeDee Lamb thing. I'm disappointed in CD. I really am. Coming off the 2 seasons that he has had last year, what is he? He had almost 2,000 yards one year. I think he fell short at like 1,800 yards. Even last night, starting off the game, he had 7 catches altogether for 110 yards. With those couple drops he had, he should have easily had a $180. CeeDee Lamb, I'm very disappointed. Those were some very crucial, and I mean crucial drops. He had 4. I don't count the last one against him where he had to dive. Hard play to make. I know y'all probably don't remember, but do you guys remember the play when Peyton Manning was on the Broncos and he threw that ball? It was 50 yards down the field on the right out of bounds line on the right side of the field. Emmanuel Sanders, he dives for the ball and gets his head absolutely knocked off. That was a type of play that was fixing to happen to CD, but it didn't end up happening. But 3 balls that he's got to catch. The first one you can get away with. It's in the first half of the game. Miscommunication, fine. But those middle 2 balls in the 2 very last drives of the game, you got to have them. The second one on 3rd down would have moved I think it might have been on 2nd down maybe, or it might have been 3rd down. But you got to catch the ball, got to move the sticks. Hit him right in the hands. Right in the hands. Couldn't come up with it. And then the next one was 10 times worse. Granted, I didn't like the play calling on that. I wanted him to commit to the run just a little bit more just so you wouldn't get pass happy. I just still like complimentary football in that aspect, but in a balanced offense. But still, we wouldn't have been in that position if CeeDee Lamb catches that ball. He beats Quinyon Mitchell. It's a wonderful play call by Brian Schottenheimer. Dak read it right. Tolbert was clearing out the safety, so CeeDee Lamb had a wide open post route. He would have called it, would have been close to the red zone. I think it would have been in the red zone or close to the red zone, one of the two. He probably could have even called it, shed off the tackle, and even scored. We would have won the game. That is how big of a play and a drop that is. We catch that ball game, we are having a different discussion. We are having a discussion if the Dallas Cowboys could build upon this, maybe not win the Super Bowl this year, could maybe fight in the playoffs, and then you could be very happy about what we could do with those 2 first-round picks that we have in our pockets, well, actually 4 in the next 2 years. But we're not having that conversation because and y'all know y'all see it in my graphics. You got to catch the football. If y'all's been watching the documentary, my man Michael Irvin, like he wanted the ball so bad. He wanted the moment. And CD, I know he wants it. There's been tweets today about Nick Harris, a guy who covers the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys had the rest of the weekend off, and basically any type of work that's going on in the facility is optional. The one person that was there, CeeDee Lamb, on the jugs machine. It's great to see that he's got that. He's going to bounce back, but man, it's always something with the Dallas Cowboys because it's always games like this where they are a play away, and it just never seems to roll their way. But that was the CeeDee Lamb. He's the guy, the $34 million man. You gotta have him. We gotta have him. We gotta have him if you want to compete like they want to compete. My very shocking one that I was very shocked about, the running game. Granted, who knows how this would have actually been if Jalen Carter was in the lineup, but man, the Dallas Cowboys were able to run the ball as the best they've ever had, and I could say probably since Ezekiel Elliott was in his prime. I mean, that was just phenomenal. Maybe even probably 17 or 18 whenever the last time Ezekiel Elliott won the rushing title. That is the last time I could say that I've ever seen the Dallas Cowboys run this good. Even the last 3 playoff stints that we've had under Mike McCarthy, we have never ran the ball this good. And I got to give a lot of credit to Brian Schottenheimer and the offensive line coach, which the offensive line coach was a guy who a lot of people were high on coming out of Arizona. His scheme and the way they schemed up the runs, they were absolutely beautiful. I actually had the stats pulled up. I was pulling up CD's stat line to make sure he was close to being to 2,000 yards, which he was. Javonte Williams, 15 for 54, 3.6 yards per carry. The stats doesn't provide this justice. He did an absolutely phenomenal job running the ball. Miles Sanders, who we will get to later, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we'll get to him in a minute. 4 for 53, average 13 yards per rush. They, as a whole, they ran for 5.4 yards a carry. I don't think I've ever seen that number that high against an actual good team in years. I don't think I've ever seen it that high under Mike McCarthy at all. So I got to give the running game a whole lot of credit in the offensive line, new offensive line, and young offensive line in Tyler Booker, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Guyton. They did a phenomenal, and Terrence Steele, got to give him his credit too, even though he's not part of the Young Bucks, but they did an absolute phenomenal job in every single way, form, or fashion. Because something that the Dallas Cowboys lacked, which we'll talk about it on the defensive side of the ball when we get to that, but physicality. The Dallas Cowboys have not been able to out-physical in the trenches. Yesterday, they were more physical than the Eagles in the trenches by a mile. I don't want to say by a mile, but they were considerably better in the trenches than the Philadelphia Eagles. They were getting 5 yards a clip. I don't even think it was a handful of times where they didn't get stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Not one time, I don't think. They did just an absolute phenomenal job in the run game. But Miles Sanders, we'll get to him now. And here's another big play that cost us the game. How do you not hit your head on the goalpost? That is 6. That's got to be 6. And we know who we had sitting on the bench inactive, Jayden Blue. And we know another guy who we were very high on, who I was very high on in the preseason, in Phil Maffa, sitting, he's on IR, but he's out off the team in favor of Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders, if that was Jayden Blue, that is a touchdown. If that was Phil Maffa, even though he's more of a bigger guy, that's a touchdown. I don't care about the whole Zach Bond thing. They said he clocked him in at 20 miles per hour running. I don't care. In no way, form, or fashion is a running back getting caught and chased down by a linebacker. There's no way. Not in that moment, that play. I mean, you got to hit your head on the goalpost. It is absolutely unacceptable. And then in that same drive, even though you got to give, we got a break with the unnecessary roughness call that Blankenship got, which was ticky-tacky, and then the stupid, which we'll get to later, with George Pickens, his dumb rump with the dumb penalty he had. Miles Sanders fumbles the ball. You just can't do it. Even though he had 2 hands on the ball, he just didn't secure it tight enough. Cannot have it. You cannot have it. So Miles Sanders, I don't want to say just pull the plug on them just yet, but man, if I'm the Dallas Cowboys next week, I am highly considering giving Jayden Blue a look because that was a big deal breaker in this game, and probably outside of the CeeDee Lamb stuff is single-handedly the only reason why we did not lose this ball game. It's very bad. D-line. This was the big question mark going into the game because of Micah Parsons and everything else involved around that. The defensive line, outside of the first half, now the first half it was rough. It was a rough watch. But the D-line as a whole did very well. I don't know what they did coming out of the second halftime with the weather delay. I don't know what they did, but man, they need to do more of it for the rest of the year. They were good all across the board. Kenny Clark making his presence felt. I think the stat came out that he only gave up 2.2 yards per carry when he was out on the field. When he was not there, it was 6.6. So you see the big impact that he made in the run game. Sam Williams, I think, did pretty well outside of a couple missed contains that he had. I think the worst defensive player on the line that we had all day, I can say, was Dante Fowler. He overcommitted way too much. He did not have good lane discipline when pursuing the quarterback and the rush. Just not good angles at all. Marshawn Nealon, a lot of these guys at edge rush, Donovan Ezeraku, you're going up against the best offensive line in the league by a mile. The two best tackles, number one at their position, and Lane Johnson and Mailata. And in the middle, you got Lane Dickerson, All-Pro, Cam Jurgens. Like, you're not going to face a D-line like that for the rest of the year. You're just not. So seeing what they did and what they were able to do in the second half against that Eagles front is, you got to give the guys credit. You got to give them credit, even though it wasn't looking so hot in the first half. But whatever they did coming out of the second half, the weather delay specifically, they need to do some more of that because that was just a great job all around. So good job for the D-line. DBs look pretty good to me too. They were tackling, being physical, and that's something I got to give credit for the D linemen too. They would always get punched around with Micah Parsons the last couple of years. They couldn't stop a cold. They were playing physical up in the trenches. Same thing with the defensive backs. Tackling, a lot of great tackles, specifically the one that on the Eagles' second to last drive when it was a big third down play and they threw the ball to the sideline, and you had Bland and Elam over there tackling, super physical. Like, pads were cracking all night. It was a beautiful thing to see for the Dallas Cowboys. So DBs did real well outside of giving up that one bomb out, and even give Elam credit for that. He was pretty much right on it. He just, it was that close. So DBs did pretty good. Linebackers, I can say was probably the weakest. I still think they're missing a lot of speed at the linebacker position. Sanborn, I think, done the best out of each one, and Damone Clark, shockingly, they hit the holes well. I just think the worst one by far was Kenneth Murray. There was a lot of times Kenneth Murray was just lost. I would love for the Dallas Cowboys to give Maurice Leofau a look because he had a lot of injury out there yesterday, and he has a lot of speed. And we all got to remember, Demarion Overshawn is still going to be on the field at some point this year, hopefully, if he's going to be 100% healthy. So linebacker help is coming, and I think with those draft picks, more than likely that is definitely a position that they are going to use those draft picks on. And to end it off, Brian Schottenheimer. Got to give the man absolute credit. I hated the Dallas Cowboys, and I don't even like using the word hate, but it is situation. I did not like the idea of signing Brian Schottenheimer. I was totally against it. I did not like it. I bashed it. Even though he done great at the podium, he said the right things. I like those type of guys who are able to be very professional. He's been very professional and still is. I question his play calling, a lot of questionable things in the preseason, but he said that, they weren't wanting to show everything. But man, I got to give him credit. They were physical. They were ready to play. Discipline, which is something that they did not do at all with Mike McCarthy or be physical, because they always had more penalties than the opposition, and they were never looked physical and never looked like they were always ready to play against big competition. And he done all of that for the Cowboys, and he called a very good game. I thought he done a phenomenal job with play calling. Outside of maybe the last drive of the game when it's one of those, buttholes get tight type of situation, I think he got a little tight with his play calling. I would have loved him to be able to run the ball and keep it a little bit balanced on that final drive. He got a little too pass happy for me. But outside of that, and that comes with time. That comes with time. Unless you're in that position like Brian Schottenheimer, actually calling the plays and getting this team in this position to see what you have. In that environment, it's not an easy task to do. So I give Brian Schottenheimer an A+ in my opinion. Well, let's not give him an A+. Give him an A+ if he wins. I give him an A-. I thought he was just sensational in every single fashion. I love the way they played. The boys seemed like they were locked in. He looked like a leader of men. And his dad, he's like the fourth winningest coach in the history of the NFL. And hopefully, and a lot of people are saying, man, his son should be just as good, but we're not going to get that. We're not going to get that deep into it. Pete Carroll and a lot of people spoke highly of Brian Schottenheimer. And it showed. It really, really did. And I'm looking forward, and I'm very, very high on the way he's got the Dallas Cowboys, and I think he can possibly continue it. I love what I saw all around from Dallas Cowboys. Yes, did they win the game? No. Did this have to do probably because I had low expectations? Yes. But as just a fan and just what you've watched the last couple of years, things that I have been frustrated with. Number one, no motion on the offensive side of the ball for the Cowboys. They were always stale route concepts, everything. Brian Schottenheimer, everything, crossing routes, comeback. Like, it was great run schemes. Like, everything just on offense, I was like, finally. And on the defensive side of the ball, it felt so good to be able to stop the run. Like, you will not understand. And I talked about this with my father going into the game. It's like, there's one thing that would just irritate the life out of me is not being able to stop somebody like running the ball, because you just cannot scheme up a run. You just can't. You cannot schematically stop the run. It is man on man, manpower on manpower, and who is going to be the tougher guy. That's how you stop the run. And that is something that the Cowboys have lacked for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. For the longest time. Probably since the last time they were actually pretty good at stopping the run, and probably not even that good at that time, was back in Dak Prescott's rookie year. So it has been a long time since I've seen a very physical Dallas Cowboys team. And they were that yesterday. And the Eagles is the most physical team that you will find out there in the league. They really are. So that is something I'm excited about. Granted, Jalen Carter weren't there. It was a very sloppy Eagles team. It wasn't the same Eagles team as last year. But you got to give the Cowboys credit. Going into that game, banner night, on the road, that crowd, first game of the year with your new head coach, new offense, new everything, new coaching staff. You have a whole weather delay too, which really helped out both sides essentially. Both offenses got really stagnant. But the Dallas Cowboys, you can be higher on them now. A lot of games that we thought were losses could potentially be wins. We never know. The way they're very optimistic the way they looked. If the way they played last night, if they could just clean up the small things, like literally just catching the football, which is something that is easier to fix than being disciplined, situationally, Brian Schottenheimer was 10 times better than what Mike McCarthy ever was. Like, being situational things, penalties and things, that's stuff that's harder to clean up. You can easily clean up catching the football. That's an easy cleanup. And just if we can get that, catching the football, keep George Pickens from doing stupid stuff with back-breaking penalties. He's dying for one a game. You got to get that under check. And staying committed to stopping the run and making somebody pass. They're not going to win. The Dallas Cowboys are not winning the Super Bowl. They are not a Super Bowl. They are not a Super Bowl contender. But you want to see them compete and be able to build up something good with those 4 draft picks that you have. 4 first-round picks. That could be ultimate game changers because the offensive line is young. Very young. You have them for a good 7 to 8 years. Easily. They're young. Wide receiver core. They're going to continue to get good. Even with those if George Pickens doesn't work out, you're going to use a first-round pick on those wide receivers, and it is easy to find a stud first-round wide receiver nowadays. Jeremiah Smith, he's going to be here in a couple years. So just point that out there. But you think about that, and, linebacking core, defensive line, cornerbacks are good. You might want to pick up, but there's so much to build on. And if you see them put on a performance on that field like they did last night, granted, people like me and everybody else in the media, they did not give the Cowboys a flying chance, and they went out there and played pretty well and played in a different type of mentality than I have seen in years. It's something to build upon. And now, specifically next week, they are going to be tested. They're going up against a very, very good elite defensive line. So I'm going to be interested to see how the Cowboys respond, specifically on the offensive line side of things. And I think the defense will be able to hold up. So all in all, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. They absolutely deserved the win. Well, they didn't deserve the win, but Jalen Hurts did Jalen Hurts things. He put on his Superman cape and won them the game. They did what was necessary to win the game. And the Dallas Cowboys, when the crunch time was needed and they needed a big play, they couldn't make the play. And that's something that the Cowboys has lacked for years. But for me, it's a moral victory because I can lose in that fashion. In the past years, the Dallas Cowboys have lost. It's either been because of dumb penalties, situational errors. That is stuff that just irks the living life out of me. In this situation, you lost the game just because you couldn't catch the football. And just one turnover, a backbreaker turnover. That is the reason why you lost the game. Those things are easier to clean up than being disciplined down the stretch and situational errors. So, again, I think the Dallas Cowboys, and I think this is something that people are missing here. I really do think the Cowboys still could very much still end up the number 2 best team in the division. I know that a lot of people have had them in 3rd place, but I'm waiting to see what the Commanders look like. But I do think the Cowboys have a shot to make the playoffs, and they're not going to be a boring watch. They're going to be very exciting to see. So that is pretty much it. Those are my thoughts on the game from last night. It was a good game. Great first opener to the season, and I'm looking forward to watching more football tonight. I think I talked about that topic for 43 minutes roughly. Yeah, that was a long topic for me. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think down below in the comments, and I want to know all of your thoughts down below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, these next 2 topics, I promise you, are going to be quick. The Cowboys stuff was pretty much the headliner for my show today, and the next 2 topics should not be nowhere near as long. So we're going to talk about move to a topic that I'm I'm frustrated about, realistically. There was a report that came out about Bill Belichick. He has banned Patriots scouts from attending UNC practices to scout their players. As a good friend, not a good friend, what am I talking about? But a good person that I watch in the sports media that reported on it, Mr. John Middlecoff, reported on his show. NFL scouts in general have faced hurdles scouting UNC players so far under Belichick's tenure at North Carolina. This single-handedly has to be one of the dumbest stories I have heard from a college football program. The point of college and the point of college football is to prepare young men for the next level. What does that mean? When you're preparing, you're teaching these boys to be professional at all times. Every practice, give it all you have, because you never know. You never know, because that one scout, that one team who could be the only team who could want you on their team could be present at that practice. And if you're out there bull crapping and bull jiving and being lackadaisical, you may have killed your chance from being in the NFL. Why wouldn't you allow scouts? It says the Patriots specifically, but it's been reported they're saying that scouts in general have had a problem getting to UNC's practices to scout players. That is the whole point of college football. That's the whole point of the player development stuff for the NFL, the scouting. That's the pivotal part of it. It's not always about what the players are able to show on Saturdays. What happens behind the scenes? How are they at practice? It is things that are important and that people observe and scouts observe. So when you're having a report like this, it is dumb. If I am a parent, heck, if I am a player with this type of news, why would I want to go play for your football program? The ultimate goal for any kid, even with the stage of NIL, the ultimate goal is to make it to the NFL. That NIL money, and a lot of people has already said it, it is not forever. The ultimate goal is to get to the NFL. And with this, with just the Patriots themselves, that is one less team that a player could potentially go to. That one team, that could probably be the only team that would ever be interested in a kid. That's one less team taken away. It's already hard enough to make it into the NFL. It's hard to get drafted, specifically at a school like North Carolina that is not historically great at football. It is a basketball school, and it's always been called a basketball school for a reason. So you're already handicapped to a certain degree to begin with. So these reports, they are not helping your case. They're not helping you out. Because it's already hard to make it into the league. It's already hard for kids from North Carolina to get drafted. How many great players before NIL, even now with NIL, what great players have you heard play for the University of North Carolina? None. The only great player you can really think of, Lawrence Taylor, 35, 40 years ago. This isn't an elite program with elite athletes. These players, these kids need every single chance they can get to get looked at. Just because you have a personal falling out with the New England Patriots does not mean that a kid on that team for the North Carolina Tar Heels wouldn't want to go to the New England Patriots. What if a kid who's playing for your program, his favorite team, someone, in this day and age, he's looked up to the Tom Brady's, the Bill Belichick's, because that's why he wanted to play for you. Wes Welker, Rob Gronkowski. That's the type of generation you're coaching. That's what the type of football they grew up with. We're talking about 18 to 20-year-olds to 21-year-olds. These are the type of guys that we were talking about. So one can surmise their dream could be playing for the New England Patriots. And just because Bill Belichick, because of your personal issues you have with the franchise, because I don't know, whatever type of things you have going on with Robert Kraft and things of this nature where, I don't know, they had some type of issues. But you're going to let that get in the way of a kid on your team potentially wanting to play for that franchise, an historical franchise who had the best player of all time play for them at the quarterback position, who has the most Super Bowls? In the city of Boston, the biggest sports city in the world, all the commercial value that could be going with that team, and you think that nobody will want to go play for them? And you're going to deny that kid for playing for them? And you're going to deny New England Patriots scouts from going to your practice? That is beyond petty. Beyond petty. Is unprofessional. And it is ultimately a disservice to those kids. again, and I'm going to reiterate it. You are at considered a very small football program. You're not in one of the elite programs. You're not the Alabamas, all the powerhouses in the SEC, Big 12, Big 10. You're in the ACC. You're a basketball school. You've not had any talent be able to come out of North Carolina. It's hard to get kids to go to North Carolina because all the good kids are going to the bigger schools. So you would think that, darn, it would be in the best interest of these kids to invite every single scout that we can get in here. But because of your pettiness, and even not only the New England Patriots, but other scouts as well, you've denied these kids a chance and opportunity to get looked at. And potentially other teams, not only the New England Patriots. It is beyond petty. And this is something that continues to, I wouldn't say taint Bill Belichick's legacy. He couldn't get a head coaching job in the NFL. He's had nothing but drama ever since he's came to North Carolina with the girlfriend thing and all the other stuff. Then you have the game, your debut game, when you get the absolute brakes beaten off of you by TCU. Not even close. And then you have this report. If I am a parent of a child whose ultimate aspiration is to go to the NFL, when supposedly Bill Belichick is supposed to be leading a NFL style type program, I would not want to step foot, even consider going to North Carolina. I wouldn't. Because in my opinion, it would be in the best interest of my child to go elsewhere. And that is not something that you think would be coming out of my mouth. That is not something that North Carolina and fans of the program would think they would say with Bill Belichick. With Bill Belichick, they were thinking potential natty. That's why they were thinking the first drive going into the TCU game. They're like, okay, are we back? Question mark? Are we back? No, you're not. So this story is just, it's very, very troubling in my opinion. It's disheartening. This is just another, it is another indication of why everybody still thinks that Tom Brady rode that ship in New England. This is another indication of it. Because ever since Tom Brady has not been a part of Bill Belichick, even historically, Bill Belichick has not been successful as a coach in any way, form, or fashion without Tom Brady. All the things going on in North Carolina, all these reports, couldn't get a head coaching job. This is still an indication that Tom Brady was that guy in New England. It had nothing to do with Bill Belichick. Yes, Bill Belichick, he coached a phenomenal defense, and that defense bailed Tom Brady out a lot. But this is just more of an indication that Tom Brady, and it was 75% Tom Brady. He was 75% of the reason why the New England Patriots were successful in their stint. Because Bill Belichick has continued to struggle without Tom Brady, but Tom Brady went on to win another Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. So this is a very petty story, and it's very disheartening. And if I'm a parent, I'm not even come close to let my child go play for North Carolina. What do you guys think about this story? It's very dumb, very stupid in my opinion. I'm very down on North Carolina right now. If I'm a fan of the North Carolina program, I'm hot. I'm not satisfied at all. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to know all of your comments down below. All right, guys, we're about an hour into the show. Thank you guys for joining me. We got one more last topic that I'm going to get to. We're going to get into pretty much just a little quick preview of tonight's game with the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers and the Chiefs are matching up in Brazil tonight. So it's going to be a pretty much even playing field. Now, Jayden, what does that mean? First of all, y'all know my picks if y'all guys watched the latest show. I have the Los Angeles Chargers winning this game. Now and I'm not going to go, I didn't come up with keys to the game. I'm just want to talk about things that need to go well, things that I'm looking for, and a lot of question marks. The biggest story is it's Justin Herbert's time. Justin Herbert historically has always fell short to Patrick Mahomes in an all-out duel in LA or Arrowhead. Now, I picked the Chargers because it was a neutral site. If they were if they were playing in Arrowhead, I would have not have picked the Chargers. I definitely would have picked the Chiefs. But since this is a neutral site, first game of the year, I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Defenses are going to be sloppy. I think both Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert are going to have their way on offense. But I ultimately think at the end of the day, I think that Justin Herbert will finally get his crack at Patrick Mahomes and can start to live up to the potential. And this is what I'm basing my pick on. With Jim Harbaugh going into his second year under Jim Harbaugh, it is his time. You're considered in this high class of quarterbacks with just elite talent-wise. You got to be able to produce. You got to do something. Something memorable. You choked in a playoff game against the Jaguars when you were up multiple touchdowns. Now, a lot of that had to do with your head coach. And then last year, you threw more interceptions in your playoff game than you threw all year. It was just very bad, Justin Herbert. And you are somebody who I am a fan of. Like, I give the most excuses to Justin Herbert. But his time is now. So that is more of my reasoning going with my pick that I went with. Now, things that I'm worried about with the Chargers. I'm worried about the O-line. We knew that they lost Rashawn Slater for a whole year. Sadly, he got injured at practice, so Joe Alt's going to be having to go to the right tackle. I don't know what they're going to look like in the tackle position. Knowing Jim Harbaugh, he's got good depth. I think he's going to have good depth. I think he's going to have guys loaded up, ready to go. And I'm worried about that position, but I think they're going to be able to maintain it specifically for this game and for the rest of the season. I'm interested to see how the Chiefs bounce back from their Super Bowl loss. We all know, coming off of a Super Bowl slump, a lot of teams historically have not been able to bounce back. Normally, the winning team coming off the Super Bowl win are able to bounce back. Not bounce back because they won the Super Bowl, but they were able to week one pretty much recapture the magic that they had from last season. But historically, a lot of teams who are coming off a Super Bowl loss do not tend to do well the next following season. So with this being the Super Bowl, Chiefs are back-to-back Super Bowl champs. They were going for that three-peat. They know how to win. We're talking about Patrick Mahomes, considered one of the best players right now in the game, in the history of football. So you got Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. Rashee Rice is not going to be there because he's suspended, but still, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs here. Anytime you got 15 at quarterback, you have a chance. So I'm very interested to see offensively how they are without Rashee Rice, if they're going to be able to be, a lot of motion, if they're going to be able to move well. Travis Kelce being older in age, a lot of things that I'm looking to and seeing how well they're able to run the football. And defensively, are they going to be able to get pressure with that lack of offensive linemen being down? Their Pro Bowl, All-Pro offensive lineman and Rashawn Slater being injured for the rest of the season. Are that front with Chris Jones and Carl Loftus, are they going to be able to get pressure on Justin Herbert this game and not let Justin Herbert be able to all-out sling it in tonight's matchup? So that is what I'm going to be looking forward to. And overall, I love me some Jim Harbaugh. I do. I think that Jim Harbaugh is going to play some complimentary football. Jim, he's going to want to run the ball down your throat. He's going to do it at will. Even if it's not working, he is going to make a way for it to work. He's very old school. I just love me some Jim Harbaugh. His team is always disciplined, and he's got great defense. That is going to be the deal breaker for this game. Who is going to play the better defense? Just because of Jim Harbaugh, I have a lot of faith in Jim Harbaugh, even though Spags is that guy. Let's not get it twisted. The man's won 3 Super Bowls because of his defense. If it wasn't for his defensive play calling, Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have some of those Super Bowls that he had out of the three. I think one you could say it was because of Patrick Mahomes because he played hero ball, but in many cases Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have been able to come back and win some of them Super Bowls that weren't for Spag's defense. So Spagnuolo is no slouch on defense, but I think specifically in this game, neutral site, Jim Harbaugh's defense up against Spags. I'm going for Jim Harbaugh because I think Jim Harbaugh arguably had like a top 3 defense last year, maybe even top five at worst. So he had one of the best defensive units in the NFL. So I'm very high on the Chargers defense, and I'm trusting them more to get stops and ultimately win the game. Even though this game is still going to be high scoring, I think I'm going to have the Chargers scoring like 38 points. I think they're going to win 38. I got a score being like 38-35. It's going to be a thriller. It's going to be a close game. But that is pretty much all I'm going to say about that game, and that's all I really think I have. It's going to be a good game. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be 8 o'clock on YouTube, and I think it's going to be Justin Herbert's time. That's what I'm basing my pick on. Justin Herbert, it's time, son. We got to do it. We got to beat that man. Patrick Mahomes, if you can't do it now, he's going to be in your division for the rest of your career. You better get it together. We got to get it together, and we got to be able to win us some ball games. So that is my thought process with this pick tonight. So that was short and sweet, straight to the point. And those are my thoughts on the matchup going into tonight. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is all I have for today. We made an hour-long show out of 3 topics. That is absolutely phenomenal. But it was a great night of football last night. It's going to be a great weekend of football. This is 4 straight days of football. We had last night. We got to tonight. We're going to have tomorrow with college football. And then we have a full slate of games on Sunday, even Monday night. Cannot forget about that as well. So we got a lot of football ahead of us, folks, and it's the first week of a full weekend slate of football. It's great to see. Glad we're getting back to this, and hopefully this game tonight is able to capitalize on the magic it had last night, minus delays. Let's get this game over in 3 hours and 15 minutes, please. I don't want to be up late having to watch another football game because I got a 8:16 tea time in the morning, okay? Can't be up at 12 o'clock watching no more football tonight, all right? But ladies and gentlemen, that is all from today's show. I thank you guys so much for joining me. If you enjoyed, do hit that like button on the video. Subscribe to my podcast and my show as well, because I got a lot of content for you guys. And, we have this show 3 times a week. So if you tuned in and you enjoyed, please do not hesitate to follow me on YouTube, as well as my description and my socials down below. Check out my other videos as well, and it pertains to sports and anything of that nature. And again, like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you guys for joining me for this evening's show, and I love you guys so much. And I will see you guys in the next one. I don't know if I'm going to go live the weekend. I think will probably more than likely wait on Monday. We'll just have to wait and see. I might do a little show on Saturday night. I'm not 100% sure. But if I don't see you guys this weekend, I will see you guys on Monday for sure. I love you guys so much. Peace, love, and positivity always, y'all. See ya.